ago. First about the water problem. People, you can see these cholera outbreaks here and there around the world and killing thousands of people. And it's an absolutely ridiculous disease. Why? Because it can be killed at 55 degrees. And I'm sure it's very easy to get the sun to provide more heat than was necessary to clean this water. I'll show you later how we do that. Kenya has always had an affinity for solar. Even 30 years ago when solar panels started arriving, Kenya was always the leading country in Africa in implementing this on a micro level. So there are hundreds of thousands of small solar scale systems in Kenya. Now we wanted to go to all the about 7-8 million households in Kenya and make sure they have a solar system. The easiest thing is having a battery and a light separate and the cells with wiring and everything. Put everything in one product. And this one you can just hang in your belt and you can charge as you walk around in the daytime. And at night you have ample light for reading and doing all kinds of activities after dark. So this is sort of like trying to bring the products down to a level where everyone can afford them through using carbon finance and through using microfinance in order to reach everyone. Okay, in the meantime, let's continue with the Kyoto box, which was mentioned. Now the Kyoto box, this is something I was doing with my kids, like a little scientific experiment. There's a 240-year-old invention, which was it was called the hot box, which is black inside, it's got a glass on top. Basically what you do is you use the greenhouse effect to create heat inside the box. So we made a cardboard cooker, and that's nice enough, but it's going to be destroyed in the rain. So we came up with this plastic thing, which is really simple. So you just open it up like this. You set up the lid to whatever height of the sun. So it has this plexiglass cover that you just remove. You put the casserole inside, then you close the lid, like that. Got a little Velcro strap to make sure that dogs and monkeys can't get in. We did have a problem, though, with goats. They like to eat polypropylene. I don't know why. So you basically put this in the sun, and it cooks food slowly. And that's actually a good thing, because you want to cook food slowly. It retains all the vitamins and nutrients in the food. And this is something which saves a lot of CO2 emissions. So it's possible to actually use the carbon credits which are generated from the use of the box to pay for it. And that's why we called our company Kyoto Energy, because we use that protocol to implement these things on a grassroots level. Now that's a pretty new exercise, because so far most carbon projects have been in China and India, and it's been on an industrial basis. It's much easier to retrofit a factory than to do something on the grassroots level. So what we did is to devise a mobile system that can track the carbon on individual households. So even if it's on a per kilo basis, we know exactly what's happening in those households. So the fact that mobile technology is spread so rapidly has been a fantastic boon actually for the implementation of this kind of low carbon devices. So it's an oven, so you can bake, you can boil. You cannot fry, however, but we have other products that can do that. And of course, it requires sun. Now, in Central Province, and here in Nairobi, this green city in the sun is actually the least sunny city in the country. So I'm sorry to say, but 80% is arid or semi-arid, so there's plenty of sun to go around everywhere. So the rural areas usually have a lot more than anything else. Now, continuing with the doomsday scenarios, the 7 billion tons of CO2 being spewed into the atmosphere, some people say that doesn't matter. The Earth can absorb it. Some people say that may not be a very good idea. Still, 90% of the population have no access to the grid. And the grid started in Kenya about 100 years ago. So if you continue with this speed, 10% implementation in 100 years, everyone will have a grid in year 3000. Thanks to KPLC again. So the idea is to democratize the energy process where people actually generate their own energy. And then here's another blip on the radar. This is if you look at the peak oil scenarios where people talk about. And if you don't have any more oil, we can't even grow our food, as we were told earlier. Well, if you look historically from 1000 BC until 3800, which I thought was a good number, the fossil fuel consumption graph is pretty steep. And right now we're at the top of that peak. So from here on, it's just downhill. So then you wonder why you want to rely on a resource which is so finite when you have something called the sun, which has a 4 billion year life cycle. Most of us will probably be gone before that. Another problem now, 10 billion tons of plastic waste in the oceans. And it's forming large, almost like plastic continents, in the Pacific, also now in the Atlantic. Even the Indian Ocean, they're discovering these debris. And it's a huge problem, probably even bigger than the global warming problem, because it has different kinds of poison and it attracts different kinds of poison, toxins, and some of it is, estrogens, which are female hormones. And then if you get that into the population, we end up with every baby is born is a girl. So now, I like women, but and what's been proven, in all these developing countries coming up, India, etc., you provide a decent living conditions for people, and they stop having so many children. This is known fact, and many TED speeches have been about this subject. So we have to just gonna have to provide some decent living conditions for the 2 billion at the bottom of the pyramid. So this is our guy. He's called the Photon the Frog, and he says we need solutions, we need tools, because we can only sit together and talk so much. And we're talking now, but without the tools, what can you do? I mean, humanity has always progressed on the basis of tools, whether it's the Stone Age, whether it's the Bronze Age, the Industrial Age, the Nuclear Age, the Information Age. All our ages are always defined by the tools that we use. So the plastic waste now. Okay, huge problem. The sun, with its almost infinite capacity. We use the waste to create plastic solar power. And this, amazingly to me, is a relatively new concept. I actually don't hear a lot of people talking about it, because people are building solar energy systems from silicone. They're building them from steel and glass, mirrors. And we're saying, no, let's not use any of those materials. We can use simple plastic to create a lot of things. And this device is a pretty good example of what can be done. But we have also more sophisticated solutions. Basically, you're solving many problems at the same time. You're trying to solve the plastic waste problem and the energy problem, which also leads to the water problem, all in one. So it's an endless resource meets an endless need. So do we like plastic in this world? Well, this is the production chart, and you see from 1950s, it's gone up pretty dramatically, from 0 to 260 million tons per year. I know nobody of you can, even me, can fathom how much 260 million tons is, but that's per year now. So if you look at the corresponding graph in terms of the recycling, which is there, the polyethylene, which are the two most common, or the most common resins of plastic types, you'll find that from 67% recycling to 45, 43, 31, so average is less than 50% is recycled. So that means more than 100 million tons are wasted every year. What do you mean wasted? Well, some is dug into the ground in landfill, some is floating around in the ocean, some is floating around on the soil, in the earth, everywhere. So we have absolutely no control of what's going on with this resource. At the same time, we know these charts now. We've seen this famous square that shows how much solar collectors do we need to build in order to create all the energy required in the world. So we're talking about 15 terawatts. And today, the solar energy generation capacity of the world is 15 gigawatts. So that's 1,000th of what we need. So again, if we continue at the same time, then same speed as KPLC doing the grid connections. Again, we're talking about year 3000 before people can actually live off of solar energy. That's way too slow. Now, if you take the 100 million tons of plastic waste, which is a theoretical exercise, but let's say we get hold of all that, we can actually make solar collectors about 5,000 square kilometers per year, which means that problem could be solved in 20 years. And this would be without actually generating any more material, without erecting any factories. Everything is already there, the whole infrastructure. I mean, there are cities in China that you never heard about, which have 15,000 plastics factories. So we're talking about immense resources. And again, funny enough, the poorest nations have the most sun, and also the most area. In terms of the available area for solar concentrators, Africa has 80% of that area. So it's blessed with a massive resource. And of course, in North Africa, you have this Desertec project, which is a 550 billion euro project to create about 20% of the energy